Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, and there's Domino. She doesn't know what she's doing. It's the RPG Pundit, the final boss of internet shitlords, and I'm doing this video about a subject that I wasn't going to do a video for, and it is not the subject that I'm doing the video about. Okay, let me see if I can explain this a bit better. The other day, Wizards of the Coast put out a new image that was completely unsolicited. There was no context to it at first. Later on, it resulted that this is because of a Pride event. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Pride was June. But anyways, I guess, you know, we know that that you have to have constant reminders every month of the year. So, but they posted it talking about how did they put it? They said something about the kind of adventures you can have in D&D, and then they commented on something about Pride, and that they were going to raise money to support something called the Trans Pipeline. And this image is a D&D image. Well, kind of, right? It's an image done in this unbelievably cutesy-poo pastel-colored Tumblr art that centerpieces on two presumably male, though I guess one could be like female to male, you don't know, or both could be, who can tell, right? Adventurers that are kissing each other in the middle of the public square of ye old medieval town, and they are surrounded by, well, what we could very charitably call people, in that this is, of course, a multicultural town full of all kinds of different types of humanoids that are, you know, include all colors, like not just the human colors of people who are human, but like, you know, blue-skinned creatures and red-skinned creatures and creatures with demon horns and, you know, furries and all this sort of stuff, right? And all of them are so happy, like the whole town has surrounded these people on the square, and they're all so happy and cheering about this kiss that's going on, right? And there's also like an ice dragon there, and a beholder, and an owlbear, and they're all happy and in love and dancing, right? And so if you want to see this image, if you haven't seen it yet, go on to my Twitter and search for, I mean, you're bound to find it pretty quickly, I think, but you can search for, I said, WotC triples down, right? And there you will see this image. And so apparently it's got something to do with something they're promoting for, like a Magic the Gathering thing that's going to be queer-based, but fundamentally we all know what this is. This is Wizards of the Coast, after all the recent criticism that they have received, saying, no, we're tripling down. That's why I said that, right? But I wasn't going to make a video about all this, because, you know, this is kind of not news anymore. At this point, it's expected that Wizards of the Coast is going to continue until such time as their D&D department is purged completely, and, you know, the game license is given away to some other company. We know what Wizards of the Coast is going to make, because that's all they're capable of making. They have Tumblr artists. They don't have D&D game designers. They don't have anybody there that knows how to make a D&D game, right? And obviously they also don't know anyone who is understanding of the heroic journey or whatever. And they don't have anyone who knows how to draw D&D art, right? Like, as in actual action fantasy art, as opposed to cutesy-poo garbage, right? AI might solve some of those things for them eventually, but only if they let it, you know, and who knows. But that's, again, none of this would have been newsworthy enough to me, especially because, you know, you guys know I don't do any special effects in my videos, so I'm not going to show you that image here, right? And, like, you know, doing a video talking about that image no matter how good of a description I give of it without showing it, it seemed irrelevant. And I did my post about it on X, and it got thousands of views, and so that's good enough for me, I guess, you know. You can see it there on X. So why am I doing this video? All right. Well, the reason is because there's a much bigger story that everybody else has missed about this particular post that Wizards of the Coast did. Right? And no, it's not the fact, for example, just that in the D&D has transformed the game into like essentially My Little Pony, right? Where like the beholder has like a heart-shaped eye because it's amazed by how in love these gay people are, and you know, the owlbear is a cute little dancing figure that is, you know, looks to be only about knee high, you know. But that might just be because, you know, the Tumblr artists are famous for not actually being good at drawing anything, and so they can't get proportions right. It's not any of that stuff. This is those are all things for people to complain about, and I've seen Diversity in Dragons has done it, and Neon from what the hell are they named? Anyways, you know, Neon and his girlfriend have been complaining about it, although I think she wasn't in the video. And lots of other people have done videos like, you're going to see this image, right? Even if you don't go to my X. But almost none of them caught the true story, the real thing, the real newsworthy thing. Okay, so D&D has this Twitter account. It's a huge account, right? Lots of people, gets a lot of coverage. And this is not the first woke image they've ever posted on there. Of course not, right? They've done probably over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, thousands of official woke posts, right? As Dungeons and Dragons Wizards, right? And, well, maybe not thousands, maybe hundreds. I don't remember exactly what their pace of release is. But the point is that there was always a pattern to this. Right? Now, I myself was personally blocked by the Dungeons and Dragons Wizards account. So I couldn't even post there if I wanted to. I couldn't reply. Right? But that was normal because Wizards would block people who would criticize them. And that's something to keep in mind when I get to my point here. And typically what would happen is they would post something incredibly woke, unbelievably woke, like this image. And you would see in the posts that over the course, let's say, of the first 24 hours, which is more or less what it's been now, there would be all kinds of people that would be posting criticism of this, saying this isn't the D&D I wanted, this is not real D&D, you guys are being political, blah 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 blah, right? Complaining about the wokeness factor. But then you would see thousands and thousands of posts both cheering whatever new woke thing they'd come up with, right? Oh, now gnolls are non-binary, and people are like, oh my god, that's so wonderful, yes, slay queen, you know, all of that, and at the same time attacking the chuds who are hating on D&D and who D&D wasn't made for you, white man, and all of that stuff, right? They're going to be counterattacking the people that dare to complain, right, on behalf of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, and that has been for years the typical process when D&D makes one of these posts that are intentionally meant to be an attack on regular gaming, on Western civilization, and everything else that you care about, right? And it had always gone that way. But take a look, if you can, at the original D&D post of this image, and you will find something very surprising. There have been hundreds when last I checked, but it could be thousands at this point, of posts on in reply to this image. However, it is not that same formula. Almost all of the replies have been from anti-woke gamers, or regular gamers, you could say, that are saying, you know, what the hell is this? This is not what we want, etc., right? That side is there. The woke side is not. So what does this mean? Well, literally, the woke people have moved on. And apparently nobody bothered to tell the people working in corporate at Wizards of the Coast. Right? Like, try for where the situation is right now in the conflict between left and right in Western civilization. There is no longer this is no longer the D&D is no longer an active combat field, right? It's no longer in play. It's become an irrelevant. It's not a strategic point worth capturing at this point, okay? Because the whole movement has shifted now. Right, the left are on the back foot. This is not a place and time where their job is now to like infiltrate all form of media and try to use that for their purposes. They're too busy having to worry about other stuff. Right, they're on the back foot, and so this is proof of something we already knew. Okay, and the mistake that the Wizards people have made is that they thought, okay, and this is how they were thinking, right? Well, we at Wizards of the Coast are determined to be good representatives of woke culture. We're going to do everything the woke way, and if there are gamers that don't like what we're doing, then they can just go and play some other game. This game is not for them anymore. Okay. And then they thought, but there's a whole bunch of gamers that will support us because they will want to have a D&D that is more compassionate and caring and that isn't about colonialism and imperialism and racism and misogyny. And they went on to do these things, and they were getting every time, like I said, every time they posted something on D&D that was meant to be a direct woke attack on D&D, they would get thousands of people supporting them. And so they thought, look at that, our clientele support us. But that's not the clientele. We know this, right? This is, and how do we know this? Well, because the time that they really started ramping up the wokeification of D&D was right after they finally forced out Mike Mearls. And around the time of, Candlekeep is when the books started getting produced that were increased. Each one became more woke than the last. And what you see there is that you did not have an increase or a maintaining of that of the sales from that point onwards, right? From like Candlekeep on, gradually, with a couple of occasional blips from like name recognition, like Dragonlance, the sales were dropping and dropping and dropping, and eventually plummeted and cratered into 2024 edition D&D, which is just doing unbelievably badly. Okay, and so but all along that time, right? Like we're talking like what was Candlekeep like 2023, like about 2 years, I think it is. They were still in their social media getting resounding support from the woke left. The problem they never understood, or maybe some of them did, but not all of them, is that those people that were cheering them were never D&D players. They didn't care about D&D. They didn't care about RPGs. They were instead activists who had been told or had figured out that pop culture was now the main battlefront in like 2020, 2021, 2022, had become a central battlefront for the conquering and destroying of this civilization. Right? And so it was the undoing of all the icons, right? It started from earlier than that, right? It started, 2014 really, and gradually gained strength there. So these guys were just ideological warriors. They weren't buying the books. The point wasn't to buy the books. The point was actually to destroy the game. It was to destroy D&D. The whole thing at the end result of it needed to be that eventually there wouldn't be a D&D. Right? And they were moving towards that. But now, basically after Trump's re-election, the entire environment has shifted, and they realize they're no longer going to be able to take pop culture, right? They're no longer going to be capable of putting in enough of a front there to do something, and they're now playing at a defensive level in other areas, and so they have taken out the entire priority of going after things in pop culture. And you can see this retreat. You can see it happening if you look carefully all across the pop culture of the United States and to a lesser extent the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is always a bit behind in this. They would have been slower to be a front to begin with, but they're also going to be slower to stop being one. You can see that all of a sudden. They no longer can maintain their stranglehold, and so the wise thing to do. This is Sun Tzu stuff right here. Like, the wise thing to do in that situation is not to keep at it at this moment, but to back off, right? To retreat. And so the people, all of these people that who didn't give a two-penny crap about Dungeons and Dragons, but whose job it was to push the pop culture war, the pop culture wars, I guess you'd say, they are no longer there, and that means that this is really very much the last gasp of woke D&D. They're going to achieve nothing. They're incapable of producing anything, and now they're going to achieve nothing. They're not even going to achieve the ephemeral goal that they really had of deconstructing Dungeons and Dragons, right? Deconstructing in the deconstructionism sense of the leftist philosophers, because now, for one simple reason, nobody's playing D&D anymore, right? Like official D&D, nobody's playing it. I would not be surprised at this point. I said this on X. I would not be surprised if at this moment the amount of sales per week that the new 2024 edition Player's Handbook is making is in the double digits. That's how bad it is. It is completely cratered, and no one cares about it. And you can see this because, for the most part, nobody's talking about 2024 D&D. You don't have 2024 D&D shills out there talking about it. You've got some people who are still trying to talk about Dungeons and Dragons in a generic sense, but they aren't. None of them are talking about it in the context of that edition, right? They're just trying to. These are grifters that realize that the grift is ending, but they're trying to hold on to it, and they're talking about D&D in a very generic sort of way. Right. Of course, the OSR is still very active, and all of the kind of anti-movement is very active. But Dungeons and Dragons is kaput, I've seen multiple D&D 5e influencers who have said they are quitting, or who have complained bitterly that the amount of views that videos that they do on official D&D have just cratered. Right, because no one gives a crap, right? It's finished, right? It doesn't matter anymore. So, some people are still talking about Critical Role or stuff like that, but even that is very much on the way out, because the left has been so brutalized, let's put it, by the events that have happened since 2024, since November 2024, that they are in a kind of a chaos, right? And it is, and the things are increasingly falling apart for them. You can see this everywhere in Europe, in the United States, and Canada. Their whole grip on power is unraveling. And so they have to prioritize. They have to prioritize in whatever direction they think will allow them to survive. They're not looking to, they aren't in a dominant position anymore. They are now on the back foot and are doing a survival game. And you don't go around dedicating 1,000 people to attacking traditional D&D when you're worried about your own survival. That is the really big news here, is that essentially the woke have abandoned D&D. Okay? So I guess that's everything for today. If you like this video, please share it. And if you want an alternative to actual crappy modern year D&D, you should check out my products. Some of my products are complete RPGs that are in the OSR style, which is to say old school games. If you don't know what the OSR is, look at the video right before this one, and you'll get a perfect explanation of what the OSR is. And some of them are source books and setting books, right? Some of them are stuff like the Old School Companion, which has 26. There's the Old School Companion 2, which has, I think it's 26 or 27 sandbox style adventures that you could really use with any RPG, but certainly you could use it with D&D, right? And all of these adventures are based on actual medieval history, folklore, and legends. Okay, Sword and Caravan is a setting. It's a complete setting that allows you to roleplay D&D type adventures in the time period from the Third Crusade until the invasions of Genghis Khan, all along the Silk Road. So in the Holy Land, in the Middle East, and all across Asia, going all the way to China. And it's got all kinds of material that is, again, based on the mythology, the legends, the folklore, the history of the setting, right? All the monsters, if you want to find some really weird Persian monsters, check out Sword and Caravan, right? 101 Sarmatians is a source book for my latest best-selling RPG, Baptism of Fire. Baptism of Fire is set in early medieval Poland during the Christianization of Europe. And 101 Sarmatians is the source book that details all of the different noble houses that existed in Poland at that time, their membership, intrigues, adventures that can be done, based on kind of the courtly world, and a guide to the invocation of saints for miraculous protection in the context of the Polish saints at the time. So check out all these and any of my other products. They're in the description below. You just have to click the more button if you're looking at the description of the video where it says more, press more, and then you'll see links to every single one of my products. There's tons of stuff. It's not all just medieval fantasy. There's also like weird gonzo adventuring. There's sci-fi with Star Adventure. There's modern horror with the Invisible College. You're likely to find something you're going to enjoy. Also, you can, if you want to get smaller samplings of my stuff, check out the Red Room store, where you can get the Pundit Files, which is now on issue 40, I think it is, which is called 50 Random Maniacs, and this is a collection of 50 NPC profiles. Now, it doesn't have like a full set of stats because I want it to be system neutral, right? But what it does is it tells you the backstory, weirdness, and particular personality details and abilities and things like that of 50 different weirdos that have appeared over the years in my massive 12-year-long Dungeon Crawl Classics World of the Last Sun campaign. And you can use these guys. You can drop them into your adventures. You can adjust them to be, if your adventures are like more purely medieval fantasy, or put them in as they are if your adventures are full gonzo. And I think people will probably get a creative laugh out of all of these. And they're certainly very different from your typical NPCs. But if you're not into that, you check out any of the other 39 issues. Every one of them has a different topic. They each are only cost $3.50, and you can only get them at the Red Room store. So be sure to check that out. Oh, speaking of which, I will be the guest star at the Red Room's live stream tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, I think in the afternoon time in North America. It's apparently 7 p.m. my time, right? Which makes it 7 p.m. my time makes it, I think, 6 p.m. Eastern, if I'm remembering. So be sure to check that out. Check out the Red Room store. Support them. They're nice guys. And I guess that's everything for today. Currently smoking nothing because I haven't had lunch yet, and I've been busy. I had to take Domino to her checkup at the vet. So that's everything for today. Thank you very much.